And now to our last dimension of interest, transformation. We may transform the meaning of the world by seeing it in a new way. This is a transpositional process that we call parsing, making sense of the world by seeing it in a deeper and perhaps broader way. The orientation of parsing may be purely observational, or it may be ideal, as well as pushing this parsing into realms of imaginary possibility. Then the second aspect of transformation, to change, is to act on meanings in a way that changes the world in one way or another. Michel Foucault is one of the 20th century's greatest parsers of modern meanings. Foucault studied modern institutions like prisons, asylums, and hospitals. This image is one of his best-known objects of study, Jeremy Bentham's Panopticon, a design for a circular prison where the guards were placed in the middle, able to see into every cell, but none of the inmates were able to see one another. The places Foucault chose to study are all sites of forced confinement, at least compared to shopping malls or museums or neighbourhoods where power is expressed in more complicated or subtle ways. Here's an image from Foucault's book Discipline and Punish. It's as if this is a metaphor for power generally in modernity. Our problem with Foucault is that this is a very limited parsing, just descriptive of one selective slice of the modern world, and without imagination of alternatives or agendas for change. This is an occupational hazard for attempts at disinterested parsing. Besides, digital modernity is nothing like this. In Foucault's day, he focused on isolated, power-deprived individuals, and they're being watched by those positioned in centres of power, prison warders, psychiatrists, or teachers. Think of the readers of a newspaper as a paradigmatic power centre of knowledge in the era of mass media and their program of interest that we have called assimilation. Today, in social media, we have everybody looking at each other and narcissistically watching their own displays, while the manipulators of programs of differentiation have slipped out of view. Think of social media and the invisible algorithms that manipulate our thinking. Today's world is very different from Foucault's, which means we need to parse it differently. Foucault came to love America for its personal and sexual freedoms. He is on the left with a friend on a trip to Death Valley while he was on sabbatical at the University of California, Berkeley in 1975. Pessimistic, like watching a horror movie, Foucault, in his private life, indulged in heavy-duty sadomasochism, and we often get the sense that the constraints he places upon his parsing of the modern world is a projection of sadomasochism into modernity. Yes, modernity is indeed painful at times, but in Bob Dylan's words, there must be some way out of here. Social science, without imaginative design for better futures, and without an agenda to try out these designs in meaningful human and material reality, is, we would argue, entirely unconscionable. Of course, Foucault's eloquently written horror show is true in its narrow parsing of modernity, but without broader transpositions into a changeable world, it lacks the ethical spine we would want for social science. Now, another kind of transformation. To parse is to make sense of meanings. To change is by transposition to act on that parsing. And there is changing and changing. Every act of meaning is a unique redesign. Every act of meaning transforms the world. But some redesigns replicate the underlying configuration of interests. Purchasing a new commodity will change your life in a little way, but it won't change the underlying configuration of interests in the social world of commodities and the environmental world of their production. Then there are changes that transform the configurations of interest in the world in small ways. This is a picture of the club room in the Tech Model Railroad Club at MIT. This is where the word hack was coined by the faction of the club working on the wiring and improvised computer systems below the baseboard that control the trains. In modern railroading, to hack is to take a commercially produced model and to modify it in some way. From here, the word spread to modification of computer software. We want to appropriate this word to describe incremental change. Then there are big changes, transformative changes that we need to consider also. Here now is the image we have used for the cover of the second volume of our transpositional grammar, Adding Sense. It's from Yirrkala in northern Arnhem Land by Yolngu artist Reggiana Mumungu. We've been there a number of times for our literacy research work. The Yolngu have partly managed to escape the revolutionary change of life that many First Peoples have experienced with the spread of colonialism around the world. They have kept their tens of thousands of years of meaning. The Yolngu have a lovely concept for the unified meanings of the world, which they name Galtha. This is a connecting spot, which might be a place, a sacred ceremony, people coming together for the preparation of bread from syad nuts, or sitting on the ground to negotiate collective purpose. The middle area in this image is one such connecting place. Once we can appreciate how differently the Yolngu configured the meanings of the world in their relationships between each other and within nature, we may come to realize that we humans have made big changes in the conditions of our existence and that we can make changes this big again. And surely passing the world must tell us that transformative change is needed.